So I'm going to talk a bit about Mag Interactive and how we got our first game, Ruzzle, to 50 million downloads without having an approach of actually paying for getting new players into the game. So when we started out the company, this is the third company I'm involved in starting up. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mag Interactive. We saw that too much VC money too early can be a bit harmful if you're unlucky. So bootstrapping was the approach this time around. So 2010 we started the company and did work for hire, building games and apps for other companies in Stockholm, where we're based. And 1.5 years into that, we had some money and thought, okay, let's spend a few months now and try to build our first game. So what we did was looking at how can we find a game that has the potential to really grow without a huge marketing budget. So we wanted to find a genre that was really had super broad appeal. So looking around in just people around us in Sweden and looking at the App Store charts. At that time, a game called Wordfeud was immensely popular, a very simple word game like Scrabble for smartphone. In our opinion, not super well executed and pretty slow in terms of gameplay. You make one move and then you wait. So we thought if we do something that's super polished and a bit more fun and fast in the word game genre, we might have a potential thing going for us. And since we were then 7 guys in just a few months of runway, the focus was really to keep the scope super narrow. So what we did, we could really execute well. And then the lack of marketing budget was also a driver behind trying to make this grow on its own. So there's like no guarantee to high growth, but I think there is a guarantee to non-growth. So we try to focus on that. How do we avoid non-growth? So like things like anytime, anywhere, anyone kind of questions. How do we address that? So a mobile game, you solve a lot of that from the get-go. And anyone we couldn't really solve because we were such a small team, so we did iOS only. Otherwise, of course, you should be on all the platforms. The anytime aspect we addressed by thinking about short game sessions. So anytime, in theory, yeah, you have a phone, but you know if you need to invest 10 or 20 minutes at a time, maybe that's too ambitious for you if you think about it anytime. So even a bathroom break or between 2 stations in the commuter train, you need to be able to play the game, then you have the anytime factor. And then of course, the sharing of the game experience, if you like it, must be super smooth, and that's a kind of reactive thing. People won't share if you don't remind them that they can share. And when their friends see this sharing, is it easy to act on when they come to the App Store? Is it appealing and do they understand what the game is all about? And if they take that step to download and start the game, the onboarding process is super important, and you need to make sure they find a friend who actually invited them to make sure they become loyal players. So what is this game Ruzzle then? If you haven't played it, it's a very, very simple idea. You have 16 letters in a grid. You swipe your finger to make words from that grid. And then you have 2 minutes to make as many words as you possibly can. And it's your opponent's turn to do the same thing. And then you go back and forth. It's very competitive, and I think the magic behind it is that it's so easy to understand the concept. You can explain it in 5 seconds. But you realize after playing, like for just a few minutes, that you get better really, really quickly. So it's not a random game, it's skill-based, and you improve quickly. That's super addictive for a game. And you also realize that the guy who invited you to the game maybe played a few more days than you, and he's better, but just putting in some extra time, you'll be able to improve and beat him after a while. So super competitive. And of course, since it's a PvP game, it's social. You need to find your friends to be able to play. And that's kind of a barrier to growth in a way, but if you reach critical mass, it's a super powerful thing from a viral perspective. And also, of course, for engagement and retention. Maybe you get tired of the game after a few weeks, but you have some fanatic friend who just keeps inviting you to play more games, and you can't really get out. So we launched the game in March of 2012. We had expectations that the people who will actually find the game would play a lot, because we've seen that in the friends and family testing. But of course you can't plan for super high growth. You don't know if that's what happened. And I think for us the timing was fantastic. This other word game, people have been playing that for half a year. They got the habit of playing like asynchronous PvP casual word games, but maybe they were a bit tired of that experience, and now this is a new thing. So people started talking about it. So in 9 days we went to #1 overall in the Swedish App Store, and we stayed there for about 2 months. And it just kept spreading from Sweden to Denmark to Norway to Holland, France, Italy, Spain, and so on over the year. So about 1 million downloads per month, every month. We reached the first million in 3 weeks after launch. And that, of course, this quick growth made us realize that, okay, we can quit the work for hire stuff and really focus on the game now, and continue to add more stuff that we had left out from the start. So tweaking that kind of social integration has been the key for our success. So working with Open Graph to make sure the timeline posts are optimal when it comes to click-through rates, what kind of message should you send out and when. And then in the later part of 2012 we also added the possibility to challenge our Twitter followers. And that was not a big thing in Europe, but we saw something super interesting in the analytics dashboard in early December, with the US numbers were like 200-300 downloads per day, but then 500,000, 2,000, 4,000, really exponential growth. So we started looking at where does all this traffic come from? Has somebody written an article about us? Has it been something on TV? Whatever is it? And then we saw it was concentrated in one small little city called Collins in Mississippi. There was a lot of stuff on Twitter there. We saw the Ruzzle hashtag that we put in the prepared message when you challenge your Twitter followers. That was just coming every 5 minutes, and then more and more intense. So it was really Twitter that just exploded the game from that small city. And then the week after we saw people showing up from San Francisco, and then Atlanta, Chicago, and then the East Coast. And in, I think, 3-4 weeks from when we saw that happening first, we were #1 in the US App Store. And then a couple of weeks later, #1 on Google Play as well. So you could really see this viral thing. You invite your friends, it goes across the platforms. It's not only the chart position on the App Store, but really it's a friend network, and also Twitter and Facebook who goes across the platforms. So the growth opportunities that we saw here was like, what can we do free to grow the game? So this was obvious then, Facebook and Twitter, and then it worked better than you could ever have imagined. But we also worked a lot with the matchmaking. So if when you have a PvP game, one of the challenges is that if your friends are not active right now, then you need to just wait for them to make a move. So we added an option to play random opponents, and the challenge has been to make that random opponent less random. So we have a skill level concept. We use something called ELO rating to determine how good you are at the game, and as you become better and better, adjust that skill level, and then match you against someone of the same skill, because then the game is super even and becomes fun and competitive. And also look at player patterns, like, is this player kind of player also only want to play a few games in the morning before work and then late at night? Or does he play like for a full hour and want to make rematches all the time with the same player? Because if that's a mismatch, it will build frustration when you see fewer games played per day. We've also been very lucky when it comes to influencers, that this skill-based nature of the game makes it sort of braggable. So a lot of celebrities have been showing off their skills in Ruzzle, posting screenshots and telling everybody how good they are at the game. We had some guys in FC Barcelona that's like mocking each other on Twitter with screenshots how they beat each other. A lot of musicians, sports stars. We had an NBA star with 3 million followers who challenged his followers on Twitter, so we had to go into the invites he got after that, and also some other fantastic things, see if this works. I don't know if you have this is the French Parliament. They had a voting on same-sex marriage. I'll translate it a bit over. So they like documented the lack of interest. They realized one member is playing Ruzzle on her iPad. They see her username and realize we try to challenge her. Will she answer? Yeah, she answered.
Voici la capture d'écran de notre demande en ami à la sénatrice, le Rossignol. Elle a accepté notre invitation pour jouer, il est 15h47, puis nous avons joué avec elle à 15h51 pour preuve sur notre téléphone. C'était en pleine séance de débat. À la même heure, c'était une intervention de ministre Togira. Elle nous a explosé, regardez le score, elle nous a éclaté.
She's just crushed during debate. And like 2 or 3 hours later, we were on the top of the French App Store. So, pretty amazing stuff. So you need to have some luck. I'll skip this one, I think. So some learnings we've seen, when we created the game, we thought the game mechanics in Ruzzle, you need to respect that. We want to have fair games, since the skill-based part of it, it's important. So we didn't add in like boosters or anything like that into the gameplay. So our starting point was like, we had advertising as a main monetization, then you can like buy a premium version that's ad-free. And we thought still that, okay, if we have a lot of ads, people will buy the premium version, that would be a business. But you can really make a lot of money from advertising if done right. So we put a lot of effort into looking at retention numbers without advertising and with advertising in different kind of mix to make sure there's actually a sweet spot you can find where the advertising is at a level where retention doesn't suffer from it. So, but the problematic thing, as everybody who works with ads in their games know, is that it's a very challenging business. You can't really know what the CPMs are going to be like next month, or in another market, or another platform, or even with the same network. Are they going to be consistent? So that's something, that's a full-time job, mediating this traffic and make sure you make the most out of your ad inventory. It also makes it hard to rely only on paid acquisition, because your lifetime value will like fluctuate with the CPM levels, because you can only make sure you get a lot of gameplay out of the users and have a huge ad inventory, but then it's up to the advertiser to make the money. And what we also have seen is, of course, that PvP, if you get it right, it's extremely rewarding. We have amazing long-term retention when we see on any given day, far more than half of the players are more than 8 months old, for example. So it's just really great retention if you have a PvP game that people like. So going forward, we believe in building strong brands, since discoverability is of course a big issue for anyone on the App Store, especially if you can't pay for the visibility. So we just launched a follow-up game now to Ruzzle for Ruzzle Adventure, and building on the same kind of brand makes it easier for us to cross-promote. It's super relevant to the Ruzzle players that we have a new game where they can play Ruzzle in a new way. And also for retargeting, where we can address people that used to play Ruzzle with advertising for Ruzzle Adventure. It's both easy to get high CTRs and then low CPIs, and it also reminds them of Ruzzle. So both games benefit from the advertising money that we put in. And of course, we have a pretty big fan base. All those 50 million players, a lot of them are also following us on Facebook and Twitter and so on, and interacting with them, we can learn what they like in the game, what they would like to see in a sequel to the game or addition to the existing game and so on. So we try to put a lot of that knowledge into the new game production. So Ruzzle Adventure, we released that on iOS a few weeks ago, already more than 2 million downloads. It was featured by Apple globally as editor's choice. So we're super happy about that, of course. And it's coming soon on Android as well. So that's something we really look forward to seeing. So if I'm already overdue, I guess.
A little over, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is it even to Platinum?
Ah, it doesn't. It's
right, okay, perfect. It's very good, Ruzzle Adventure. I think
you should all try it out.
It's